Ambassador Sarah Chen had seen many strange things during her 20 years in the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, but nothing had prepared her for the sight before her. The massive transport vessel that had just docked at Terra Station looked like it had been through a war. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections appeared to have been hastily welded back together. "What happened to their ship?" asked Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez, her military liaison, as they watched the docking procedures through the observation deck's reinforced windows. "According to their preliminary transmission, they encountered pirates in the Outer Rim," Sarah replied, checking her tablet for the mission briefings. "The Dragon hegemony rarely travels this far into human space. This must be important." The Dragons were an ancient race, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. They commanded respect wherever they went, not just because of their impressive size and natural weapons, but because of their technological superiority and fierce independence. Dragon vessels were works of art, sleek and beautiful, designed to showcase their aerial heritage. This ship looked nothing like that. "Ambassador Chen to the bridge," came the voice over the intercom. "The Dragon delegation is requesting immediate audience. They say it's urgent." Sarah straightened her formal diplomatic uniform and made her way to the main conference hall. The chamber had been specially modified years ago to accommodate larger alien species with a high ceiling and reinforced floors. Even so, she wondered if it would be adequate for dragon physiology. The massive doors hissed open, and Sarah got her first look at a dragon in person. Even hunched over as it was, the creature was impressive. Scales that shifted color from deep emerald to silver covered its body, and intelligent amber eyes regarded her with what she could only describe as desperate hope. But something was wrong. Very wrong. The dragon's powerful legs, which should have been supporting its considerable weight with grace and strength, were twisted at unnatural angles. Its magnificent wings, which Sarah had seen in documentaries stretching out majestically, hung limp and broken against its sides. The creature was propped up by a mechanical support frame that looked hastily constructed and clearly inadequate. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen, representing the United Human Coalition," she said formally, bowing slightly as protocol demanded. "You are welcome aboard Terra Station." The dragon's response came through a translation device that converted its deep rumbling speech into standard galactic. "I am Zephyr Flame dancing through morning clouds, first envoy of the Dragon hegemony." The formal titles couldn't hide the pain and exhaustion in the creature's voice. "I must speak with your leadership about a matter of great urgency." "Of course," Sarah replied. "But first, may I ask about your condition? Are you injured? Do you require medical attention?" Something that might have been a bitter laugh escaped the dragon. "Medical attention? Ambassador Chen, your kind's reputation for compassion is well known throughout the galaxy. Tell me, what do you know of dragon physiology?" Sarah consulted her briefing materials. "Dragons are naturally aerial beings. You spend most of your lives in flight, with incredible strength and mobility. Your society is built around aerial cities and sky-based transportation." "Correct," Zephyr said. "And what happens to a dragon who cannot fly? Who cannot even walk properly?" The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. In dragon society, with their aerial cities and flight-based culture, a dragon who couldn't fly would be completely cut off from their civilization. "Oh no," she breathed. 3 months ago, our ship was attacked by the Vexen Corsairs," Zephyr explained. "We fought them off, but not before they used sonic weapons that damaged my inner ear and neural pathways. The bones in my legs were shattered by falling debris. Our medical technology can heal many things, but the specific nature of my injuries..." The dragon's head drooped. "I am flightless, Ambassador Chen. In my society, I am worse than dead. I am forgotten." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez had quietly entered the chamber, and was standing at attention near the doorway. Sarah could see the shock on his face as he processed what they were hearing. "But you're here," Sarah said. "You made it to human space. Surely your people haven't abandoned you." "I am here because I volunteered for what my people consider a suicide mission," Zephyr replied. "The Vexen Corsairs have been growing bolder. They've discovered the location of several of our outer colonies. Without immediate assistance, thousands of dragons will die. But who would listen to a crippled envoy? Who would take seriously the words of one who cannot even stand properly?" Sarah felt something burning in her chest, a familiar anger that rose whenever she encountered injustice. "We will listen to you, Envoy. But first, we're going to address your immediate needs. Rodriguez, I need you to contact Dr. Martinez in the medical bay. Tell her we have a priority case." "Ambassador Chen," Zephyr said, and there was something like wonder in the translated voice. "I must explain something that perhaps you do not understand. I am not just injured. In Dragon Society, I am dead to my own people. They sent me here not because they expected me to succeed, but because it was the only way to give meaning to my continued existence. A final flight, if you will, before permanent grounding." "Well, you're not in Dragon Society anymore," Sarah said firmly. "You're in human space. And we have very different ideas about the value of life and what someone can accomplish regardless of their physical limitations." Dr. Elena Martinez arrived within minutes, her medical team following with portable scanning equipment. The doctor was a small woman with graying hair, but her reputation for innovative medicine was known throughout the sector. "Let me take a look," Dr. Martinez said, approaching the dragon without fear. "May I examine you, Envoy?" Zephyr seemed surprised by the direct, respectful approach. Yes. Though I fear you will find little that can be done. Dragon physiology is quite different from human." "Maybe so, but pain is pain, and mobility is mobility," Dr. Martinez replied, running her scanner over the dragon's legs and wings. "Interesting bone structure. The breaks have healed, but badly. And this neural damage," she frowned at her readings. "Have you been in constant pain?" "For 3 months," Zephyr admitted. "That stops now," Dr. Martinez said decisively. She turned to Sarah. "Ambassador, I need to run more detailed scans, but I'm already seeing possibilities. The bone work is going to be complex, and the neural damage will require some creative thinking, but this is far from hopeless." "Doctor," Zephyr said, and there was something desperate in the translation. "You must understand. I am not here for medical treatment. I am here because my people face extinction from the Corsairs. Every day we delay means more dragons die." Sarah exchanged a look with Dr. Martinez and Rodriguez. "Envoy, you've come to the right place for both problems. Humans have a saying, we don't leave people behind, and your people, whether your own society recognizes it right now or not." "I don't understand," Zephyr said. "Let me explain," Sarah said, pulling up a chair so she could sit closer to the dragon's eye level. 300 years ago, my ancestor was injured in a mining accident on Earth. He lost the use of his legs. In those days, people with disabilities were often written off, considered useless. But humans have learned something important since then. The value of a person isn't measured by what their body can or can't do." She gestured to Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "James here lost his left arm in a combat situation 5 years ago. According to old thinking, his military career should have been over. Instead, he learned to adapt, got a prosthetic, and became one of our best tactical officers. Dr. Martinez herself has a genetic condition that affects her vision, but she's developed techniques that make her one of the most precise surgeons in the sector." "What Ambassador Chen is trying to say," Dr. Martinez added, checking her scanner readings, "is that humans have a long history of finding ways to help people overcome physical challenges. We don't see limitations. We see problems to solve." Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, the translation device humming softly. "Your reputation for compassion is well-deserved," the dragon finally said, "but you still do not understand the scope of what faces my people. The Corsairs have weapons that can burn through our strongest scales. They know our flight patterns, our city locations, and their leader, Craxon the Ruthless, has sworn to capture dragon eggs for the slave markets." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Sarah had heard of Craxon. The Vexen Corsair leader was wanted by a dozen civilizations for crimes against sentient species. "How many ships do they have?" Rodriguez asked, his tactical mind already working. "At least 40 attack vessels, possibly more," Zephyr replied. "They've been raiding for months, growing stronger with each captured ship they add to their fleet." Rodriguez whistled low. "That's a significant force. What kind of defensive capabilities do the dragon colonies have?" "Very little," Zephyr admitted. "Dragon society has always relied on mobility and altitude for defense. Our cities are built in the clouds, accessible only by flight. But the Corsairs have developed aerial attack craft specifically designed to assault our settlements." Sarah was already formulating plans in her mind. "Envoy, I need you to understand something about humans. When we see people in danger, especially people who can't defend themselves, we don't just offer sympathy, we offer action." "But what can you do?" Zephyr asked. "I am grateful for your kindness in treating my injuries, but even your military cannot match the Corsairs' numbers." "Maybe not in ships," Rodriguez said with a grim smile. "But humans fight differently than most species. We don't just rely on superior numbers or technology. We use strategy, innovation, and something the Corsairs probably don't expect: cooperation." Dr. Martinez looked up from her scanner. "Speaking of innovation, Envoy, I've completed my preliminary examination. The neural damage is repairable with surgery and some bioelectric therapy we've developed for similar conditions in humans. The bone structure will require more work, but I believe we can restore both walking function and flight capability." Zephyr's massive head turned to stare at the doctor. "Flight? You believe I could fly again?" "I don't just believe it," Dr. Martinez said confidently. "I'm planning on it. It'll take time and rehabilitation, but yes, you'll fly again." For the first time since entering the chamber, something like hope flickered in Zephyr's amber eyes. If this is true, then perhaps my mission here is not the desperate gesture my people intended. "It's not desperate at all," Sarah said. "It's the beginning of something important. A partnership between our species." "But there are protocols," Zephyr said. "Diplomatic procedures. Your leadership will need to consider the risks of confronting the Corsairs." "Oh, they'll consider the risks," Rodriguez said. "But they'll also consider the alternative. Humans have faced extinction before, Envoy. We know what it looks like, and we know what it takes to fight it." Sarah stood up, her mind already racing with the possibilities. "Envoy, I'm going to propose something unprecedented. Instead of just treating your injuries, instead of just discussing military assistance, I want to offer you something else entirely." "What do you mean?" "I want to offer you citizenship," Sarah said. "Not just as a diplomatic courtesy, but as a full member of human space, with all the rights, protections, and support that entails." Zephyr's eyes widened. "But I am dragon." "Yes, you are," Sarah agreed. "And that doesn't make you any less welcome in human civilization. Some of our greatest citizens have been non-human. What matters isn't what species you are, but who you choose to be." I have never heard of such a thing," Zephyr said slowly. "Well, you're about to experience it," Dr. Martinez said cheerfully. "Now, let's get you to the medical bay. I want to start work on that neural damage right away. The sooner we get you healed, the sooner you can help us plan the defense of your people." As they helped Zephyr navigate to the medical bay, the dragon's support frame creaking with each step, Sarah was already composing her report to Earth Command. The message would be simple. Humanity had just gained a new citizen. And with that citizen came a responsibility to protect an entire species from extinction. "Ambassador Chen," Zephyr said as they reached the medical bay doors, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you do this? Your species gains little from helping mine. The risks are considerable, and the Corsairs will likely turn their attention to human space once they finish with the dragons." Sarah smiled. "Envoy, has anyone ever explained to you what humanity actually means?" "Your species designation, I assume." "More than that," Sarah said. "Humanity isn't just what we call ourselves. It's what we aspire to be. It means compassion for those in need, regardless of who they are or where they come from. It means standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. It means that when someone comes to us crippled and desperate, we don't see a burden. We see an opportunity to be better than we were yesterday." Zephyr was quiet for a moment, processing this. "Your species is very strange," the dragon finally said. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "We are. And you're about to find out just how strange we can be when we put our minds to something." As the medical bay doors closed behind them, Sarah felt the familiar satisfaction that came with the beginning of a new challenge. Somewhere out in space, the Vexen Corsairs were planning their next assault on defenseless dragon colonies. They had no idea what they were about to face, because now they weren't just facing dragons, they were facing dragons backed by the full determination and ingenuity of humanity. And as history had repeatedly shown, that was a force that could move mountains, cross impossible distances, and accomplish the miraculous. It was time to remind the galaxy why the phrase "humanity, HFY," had become legendary across 1,000 worlds. 3 days after Zephyr's arrival at Terra Station, the medical bay had been transformed into something resembling a high-tech aircraft hangar. Dr. Martinez and her team had worked around the clock, consulting with xenobiology experts, engineers, and even historians who specialized in dragon culture. "The good news," Dr. Martinez explained to Ambassador Chen as they watched Zephyr undergo another round of neural therapy, "is that dragon physiology is remarkably adaptable. The bad news is that the damage was more extensive than our initial scans showed." Through the observation window, they could see Zephyr lying still while bioelectric stimulators worked on the damaged nerve pathways that controlled flight. The dragon had been patient throughout the procedures, but Sarah could see the strain in those amber eyes. "How much longer?" Sarah asked. "For the neural work? Another week, maybe 2, Dr. Martinez replied. "But the real challenge is going to be the bone reconstruction and muscle rehabilitation. Flying isn't just about having the right nerves, Ambassador. It's about having the strength, balance, and coordination that dragons develop over centuries of aerial living. And Zephyr's been grounded for 3 months." "Exactly. Even after we repair the physical damage, there's going to be a long recovery period. Think of it like asking a professional dancer to perform after spending a year in bed." Sarah nodded, understanding the implications. "What about the psychological aspects? In dragon culture, being unable to fly is worse than death. 3 months of that kind of isolation." "We're working on that too," Dr. Martinez said. "I've been consulting with Dr. Reeves, our psychiatric specialist. She's been developing some approaches specifically for Zephyr's situation." As if summoned by their conversation, Dr. Angela Reeves approached from the adjacent observation room. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and the sort of calm presence that immediately put people at ease. "Ambassador Chen, I'm glad you're here," Dr. Reeves said. "I wanted to discuss Zephyr's psychological profile with you." "What have you found?" "What I'd expect, unfortunately," Dr. Reeves replied. "Severe depression, anxiety about worthlessness, and something that in humans we'd call survivor's guilt. Zephyr feels responsible for being alive when other dragons are dying." "That's understandable," given the circumstances. Yes, but it's also potentially dangerous, Dr. Reeves continued. Dragons who lose the ability to fly often develop what their culture calls earth sickness. It's a complete psychological breakdown that frequently results in death. Sarah felt a chill. Are you saying Zephyr might not survive the treatment? I'm saying that physical healing is only half the battle, Dr. Reeves explained. We need to give Zephyr a reason to want to fly again, not just the ability to do it. Before Sarah could respond, an alarm chimed throughout the medical bay. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom. Ambassador Chen to the command center immediately. Priority 1 message from Dragon Space. Sarah hurried to the command center, where Rodriguez was waiting with a grim expression and a decoded transmission displayed on the main screen. It came in 20 minutes ago, Rodriguez explained. The Corsairs have hit another dragon colony. This one was called Wind Dancing Above Sapphire Seas. Sarah read the transmission details, her heart sinking with each line. 3,000 dragons? All dead or captured, Rodriguez confirmed. The Corsairs used some kind of atmospheric weapon to ground all the dragons, then moved in with ground forces. It was a slaughter. Has Zephyr seen this? Not yet. I wanted to brief you first. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking. We need to tell Zephyr, but carefully. Dr. Reeves is already concerned about psychological stability. Ambassador, Rodriguez said quietly, there's more. Long-range sensors have detected Corsair ships moving toward the Central Dragon territories. At their current pace, they'll reach the heart of Dragon civilization within 2 weeks. And our fleet preparations? Admiral Santos has assembled a task force of 30 ships, including our newest carriers. But, Ambassador, even with our best tactics, 30 ships against 40 or more, Rodriguez shook his head. The numbers don't look good. Sarah was about to respond when another voice interrupted them. Perhaps the numbers are not as important as you think. They turned to see Zephyr moving slowly but steadily into the command center. The dragon was no longer using the crude support frame. Instead, a sleek mechanical exoskeleton helped support the still healing legs while allowing natural movement. Envoy, Sarah said, you should be resting. I heard the alarm, Zephyr replied, and I saw Dr. Martinez's expression when she read the incoming transmission. My people are dying, aren't they? Rodriguez and Sarah exchanged glances. Envoy, Sarah said gently, we've received word of another Corsair attack. The colony at Wind Dancing Above Sapphire Seas is gone, Zephyr finished. I see it in your faces. How many? 3,000, Rodriguez said quietly. Zephyr closed those massive amber eyes for a long moment. When they opened again, there was something new there. Not just pain, but determination. Ambassador Chen, Zephyr said, I must ask you to accelerate my medical treatment. Envoy, Dr. V.A. Martinez says you need at least another week before... My people do not have another week, Zephyr interrupted. And there is something you need to understand about dragons that even your excellent research has not uncovered. What do you mean? Zephyr moved to the star chart display, using the exoskeleton's manipulator arms to adjust the projections. You see these locations where the Corsairs have struck? Wind Dancing Above Sapphire Seas, Storm Rider's Haven, Cloud Walking Pride? Yes, Sarah replied. They are not random targets, Zephyr explained. They are breeding colonies. The Corsairs are not just raiding for resources or slaves, they are systematically destroying our ability to reproduce. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. They're committing genocide. Precisely. And they know exactly where to strike because they have detailed information about our society that only someone with intimate knowledge could provide. Rodriguez leaned forward. You're saying they have inside information? More than that, Zephyr said grimly. I believe they have a dragon working with them. A dragon? But why would... For the same reason I am here talking to you, Zephyr said. Because they are broken, grounded, cut off from dragon society. But while I chose to seek help from allies, they chose to seek revenge against their own kind. Sarah felt the pieces clicking into place. That's how the Corsairs know about your aerial cities, your flight patterns, everything? Yes. And it means that traditional dragon defensive strategies will be useless. But it also means that human tactical approaches might succeed where dragon strategies would fail. Rodriguez was already pulling up tactical displays. What kind of defenses do the Central Territories have? The heart of the sky is our greatest city, Zephyr explained, manipulating the display to show a massive aerial metropolis floating miles above a gas giant's atmosphere. It houses nearly 500,000 dragons and is protected by storm barriers and altitude. Altitude won't protect them from ships, Rodriguez pointed out. No, but terrain might, Zephyr said. The heart of the sky orbits within the atmosphere of Ethon Prime, a gas giant with extremely violent weather patterns. Ships attempting to attack must navigate massive atmospheric storms, gravitational shears, and electromagnetic interference. Sounds like perfect conditions for an ambush, Rodriguez mused. Exactly what I was thinking, Sarah agreed. Envoy, what do you know about human aerial combat tactics? Very little, Zephyr admitted. Well, you're about to learn, Rodriguez said with a predatory smile. Humans have been perfecting aerial warfare for over 400 years. We've developed techniques specifically for fighting in adverse atmospheric conditions. Sarah activated her communicator. Dr. Martinez, I need a medical assessment. Can Zephyr handle acceleration and combat stress in the current condition? Absolutely not, came the immediate reply. The neural pathways are still healing and the bone reconstruction isn't complete. Doctor, Zephyr interjected, what if I do not require full mobility? What if I only need to guide others? There was a pause. What do you mean? Human fighters are piloted vehicles, yes? The pilot does not need to flap wings or hover under their own power. That's correct, Rodriguez said, catching on. But dragon physiology isn't designed for high-G maneuvers in a cockpit. It is if the cockpit is designed correctly, Zephyr replied. Ambassador Chen, your engineers are famous throughout the galaxy for adapting technology to different species' needs. Could they design a fighter cockpit that accommodates dragon physiology while providing the support my damaged body requires? Sarah looked at Rodriguez, who was already grinning. I know just the person to ask, he said. Chief Engineer Morrison loves impossible challenges. But even if we can get you into a fighter, Sarah said, you're talking about leading humans into combat against your own people's attackers. That's asking a lot of someone who's still recovering from traumatic injuries. Zephyr's response was immediate and firm. Ambassador Chen, 3 days ago I was a broken, useless creature waiting to die. Today, I have hope again. Tomorrow, I want to be the dragon who helped save my species. The psychological profile supports it, came Dr. Reeves's voice over the intercom. Purpose and meaningful action are exactly what Zephyr needs for complete recovery. And from a tactical standpoint, Rodriguez added, having someone who knows dragon territory and Corsair capabilities would be invaluable. No human pilot could navigate those atmospheric storms like someone who grew up flying them. Sarah made her decision. All right, Rodriguez, contact Chief Morrison and Admiral Santos. I want a full tactical planning session in 6 hours. Dr. Martinez, what's the minimum time you need to get Zephyr combat ready? Given what we're talking about? 48 hours, but it'll require some creative medical engineering. Do it, Sarah ordered. And doctor, I want regular psychological evaluations throughout the process. If at any point Zephyr shows signs of breakdown, we abort. Understood, Dr. Martinez replied. As the various department heads began coordinating, Sarah found herself standing next to Zephyr at the star chart display. The dragon was studying the projected locations of Corsair forces with intense concentration. Envoy, Sarah said quietly. "Are you absolutely certain about this? Taking on your own species' attackers, working with aliens, using technology you've never experienced before?" Zephyr turned those amber eyes toward her. "Ambassador Chen, may I tell you about dragon philosophy?" "Of course. We believe that every dragon has two lives," Zephyr explained. "The first life is the one we are born into, with our natural gifts and instincts. The second life is the one we choose, based on who we decide to become." "And which life are you living now?" 3 days ago, I thought my first life was over and my second life would be short and meaningless," Zephyr replied. "But your people have shown me something I never expected. You've shown me that the end of one kind of life can be the beginning of something entirely new." Sarah smiled. "In human philosophy, we call that growing." "Then perhaps," Zephyr said, "it is time for this dragon to grow." 47 hours later. In the modified fighter bay of Terra Station, Chief Engineer Morrison put the finishing touches on the most unusual cockpit ever constructed. Built around dragon anatomy but incorporating human technology, it was part flight simulator, part medical support system, and part work of art. "She's beautiful, Chief," Dr. Martinez said, running her scanners over the integration points between biological and mechanical systems. "She better be," Morrison replied. "I've never built a life support system for someone whose body spans 3 different engineering disciplines." Zephyr approached the modified fighter with careful steps. The medical exoskeleton still providing support, but now integrated with the cockpit's systems. "It looks like nothing I have ever seen," the dragon said. "Good," Rodriguez said, "because you're about to do something no dragon has ever done. You're about to pilot a human fighter into combat against forces that think they know everything about how dragons fight." "Are you ready, Envoy?" Sarah asked. Zephyr looked around at the assembled humans who had worked tirelessly to make this moment possible. Dr. Martinez with her determination to heal what others considered hopeless. Dr. Reeves with her patience and understanding. Chief Morrison with his innovative engineering. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez with his tactical brilliance. And Ambassador Chen with her unwavering compassion. "I am ready," Zephyr said. "Let us go save my people." As the dragon settled into the specially designed cockpit and began running system checks, Sarah felt a familiar surge of pride in what humans could accomplish when they put their minds to it. Somewhere out in space, the Corsairs were preparing for what they thought would be an easy victory against a grounded, helpless enemy. They were about to discover their mistake. Because they weren't facing dragons anymore. They were facing dragons who had learned to fight like humans, with ingenuity, determination, and the unshakable belief that no one deserves to face extinction alone. The combined human-dragon fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Ethon Prime system, where the massive gas giant's swirling storms created a backdrop of terrifying beauty. Admiral Santos stood on the bridge of the UHS Determination, studying the tactical displays with the focused intensity that had made her legendary throughout human space. "Long-range sensors confirm it," reported Commander Walsh from the tactical station. 43 Corsair vessels in attack formation around the heart of the sky. They're using the atmospheric storms as cover while they bombard the city's shields. Through the view screen, they could see the Dragon Capital in the distance, a breathtaking metropolis of crystal spires and floating platforms that seemed to dance among the clouds. Even from this distance, the explosions from Corsair weapons were visible as bright flashes against the storm-darkened atmosphere. "How long can the shields hold?" Admiral Santos asked. "Our guest expert can answer that better than I can," Commander Walsh replied, gesturing toward the communication station where Zephyr's voice came through clearly despite the atmospheric interference. "The heart of the sky's shields are powered by atmospheric energy collectors," Zephyr explained from the specially modified fighter where the Dragon now served as both pilot and tactical advisor. "In normal storms, they can last indefinitely, but the Corsairs are using focused plasma bombardment to create dead zones in the electrical fields. How long? Santos pressed. 6 hours, perhaps 7 if the storm intensifies. Admiral Santos studied the tactical display. The Corsairs had positioned their ships in a classic siege formation, staying just outside the worst of the atmospheric turbulence while maintaining consistent bombardment patterns. It was a sound strategy, especially since they knew the dragons couldn't mount an effective aerial counterattack. What they didn't know was that 30 human ships were about to change those calculations completely. "All ships, this is Admiral Santos," she announced over the fleet communication network. "Execute battle plan Thunderstorm. Rodriguez, you have operational command of the fighter wings." From his position aboard the carrier UHS Defiance, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez acknowledged the order. Around him, 48 human pilots were making final checks on their fighters while Zephyr's tactical advice echoed through their headsets. "Remember," Zephyr's voice came through the communications, "Corsair ships are designed for speed and maneuverability in open space. In atmospheric conditions like these, they lose much of their advantage. Use the storms to mask your approach and strike from angles they cannot anticipate." Pilot Captain Lisa Chen, Ambassador Chen's daughter and one of the squadron leaders, keyed her microphone. "Zephyr, what about the dragon ships? Any friendly forces we need to watch for?" "Negative," Zephyr replied, and the pain in the translated voice was audible. "All dragon vessels capable of atmospheric flight are either destroyed or grounded by the same sonic weapons used against me. You are the only aerial force available." "Copy that," Lisa replied. "All right, Thunderbirds, let's show these pirates what human innovation looks like." The first wave of human fighters launched into the swirling chaos of Ethon Prime's atmosphere, using the massive storm systems to mask their approach. Unlike the Corsairs, who were fighting against the atmospheric conditions, human fighters had been specifically designed for adverse weather combat. Advanced inertial dampeners, atmospheric sensors, and adaptive wing configurations allowed them to not just survive in the storms, but to thrive in them. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Park from Blue Squadron. 3 Corsair heavy destroyers maintaining bombardment position." "I see them," Rodriguez replied. "Zephyr, what's your assessment?" From his unique position, flying alongside the human fighters, Zephyr studied the enemy formation with amber eyes that had been trained from birth to read atmospheric conditions and aerial tactics. "They are positioned to avoid the worst electromagnetic interference," Zephyr observed. "But they are also positioned exactly where the storm currents will carry debris from their own weapons fire." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Copy that. All squadrons, prepare for Maneuver 7. We're going to use their own bombardment against them." What followed was a display of tactical innovation that would be studied in military academies for decades to come. Instead of attacking the Corsair ships directly, the human fighters used the gas giant's atmospheric currents to redirect the Corsair's own plasma bombardment. Precision flying through the storm systems allowed the humans to position reflective countermeasures that turned the Corsair's weapons fire back on their own ships. "Direct hit on the lead destroyer," reported Captain Chen. "Their own weapons just punched through their rear shields." But the Corsairs weren't helpless. Their leader, Kraxon the Ruthless, had survived dozens of battles through cunning and adaptability. Within minutes of the first redirected bombardment, Corsair ships began changing tactics. "Enemy vessels are dispersing," reported Commander Walsh from the Determination. "They're trying to draw our fighters out of the storm cover." "Let them," Admiral Santos replied. "Zephyr, it's time for Phase 2. What the Corsairs didn't realize was that their attempt to draw the human fighters into open space was exactly what the human tactical plan had anticipated. As the Corsair ships moved away from their bombardment positions, they exposed themselves to the second wave of human ships that had been waiting in the outer system. "All capital ships, execute pincer movement," Admiral Santos ordered. "Drive them back into the storms." The battle that followed showcased everything that made human military doctrine unique in the galaxy. While most species relied on either overwhelming force or superior technology, humans used coordination, adaptability, and the kind of tactical creativity that came from centuries of fighting against impossible odds. Zephyr found himself at the center of it all, no longer the broken and useless creature who had arrived at Terra Station, but a vital part of a combined force that fought with a precision and determination that took his breath away. The human fighters moved like a school of fish, each pilot anticipating the other's movements while adapting to the constantly changing battle conditions. "Zephyr," came Captain Chen's voice over the communications, "we've got a problem. 3 Corsair ships are breaking through toward the city's lower platforms. Can you guide us through the defensive grid without triggering the automated systems?" "Affirmative," Zephyr replied, feeling his heart racing with something he hadn't experienced in months. The joy of flight with purpose. "Follow my lead and stay within 50 meters of my position." What followed was a flight pattern that would have been impossible for any human pilot alone. Threading between the massive support towers of the heart of the sky, dodging automated defense systems that hadn't been designed to distinguish between friend and foe, Zephyr led the human fighters through a 3-dimensional maze that ended with the destruction of all 3 Corsair ships before they could reach the civilian areas. But the most significant moment of the battle came when Admiral Santos received an unexpected communication. "Admiral, this is Flight Leader Talon's strike against storm clouds of the Dragon Defense Force," came a new voice over the communications. "We've been monitoring your battle from the lower atmospheric layers." "Flight Leader, this is Admiral Santos. I thought all Dragon aerial forces were grounded." "We are the grounded," came the reply. "Dragons who were considered too injured, too old, or too inexperienced for regular service. But watching your human fighters work alongside Zephyr Flame dancing through morning clouds has shown us something we had forgotten." "Which is?" "That the sky belongs to anyone brave enough to claim it, regardless of what others think of their capabilities." Admiral Santos exchanged glances with her bridge crew. "Flight Leader, are you saying what I think you're saying?" 47 Dragon fighters are launching from emergency bays throughout the heart of the sky," Talon Strike replied. "We may be broken, but we are still dragons, and it is time we remembered how to fight." The tide of battle shifted decisively in that moment. The Corsairs had planned for a siege against helpless targets. They had prepared for possible human intervention, but they had never anticipated facing dragons who had learned to fight like humans, with innovation, determination, and the absolute refusal to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. Kraxon the Ruthless made his final mistake when he attempted to ram his flagship directly into the heart of the sky's central platform. What he encountered instead was Zephyr, flying in formation with Captain Chen and the combined human-dragon fighter wing, using the same atmospheric tactics that had defeated his other ships. The Corsair flagship exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the gas giant's storms like a second sun. In the aftermath, as the remaining Corsair ships fled or surrendered, Admiral Santos stood on the observation deck of Terra Station and watched something unprecedented. Human and dragon engineers working together to repair battle damage to the heart of the sky. Ambassador Sarah Chen joined her at the observation window, where they could see Zephyr moving freely among the other dragons, no longer wearing the medical exoskeleton, but flying under his own power, with a grace that made the earlier injuries seem like a distant memory. Dr. Martinez outdid herself, Sarah observed. "It wasn't just the medical treatment," Admiral Santos replied. "It was everything else. The purpose, the sense of belonging, the chance to contribute something meaningful." "Speaking of which," Sarah said, "I've received formal communication from the Dragon Hegemony. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent embassy here at Terra Station." "And?" I told them they could establish it as soon as they formally recognized Zephyr as their ambassador. Admiral Santos raised an eyebrow. I take it they agreed. Enthusiastically, Sarah replied. It seems that word of the battle has spread throughout dragon space. Zephyr has become something of a hero. The dragon who learned to fly again, who brought hope to the grounded, who showed that physical limitations don't have to mean the end of purpose. Through the observation window, they watched as Zephyr approached the station in the company of a dozen other dragons, each bearing the scars of their own injuries or disabilities, but all flying with the same determined grace. You know what this means? Admiral Santos asked. What's that? We've just accidentally started a revolution in dragon society. The idea that dragons who can't meet traditional physical standards can still contribute, can still have value, can still fly. Admiral Santos smiled. That's going to change their entire culture. Sarah nodded. And it all started because we did what humans always do when we see someone in need, which is, we helped. Later that evening, Sarah sat in her office reviewing the formal diplomatic agreements that would establish the new human-dragon alliance when Zephyr arrived for what had become their daily debriefing session. Ambassador Chen, Zephyr said, settling onto the custom furniture that had been installed for dragon physiology. I have been asked by my people to present you with something. Oh? Zephyr produced a crystalline object that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. This is called a wind singer, Zephyr explained. It is given to those who change the course of the sky itself. Sarah accepted the crystal reverently. Zephyr, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I deserve this. Ambassador Chen, Zephyr replied. When I arrived at this station, I believed my life was over. I thought I was worthless, broken, forgotten by my own people. In 3 weeks, you and your people have not only healed my body, but shown me that my life could have meaning and purpose beyond anything I had imagined. We just did what humans do, Sarah said. Yes, Zephyr agreed. You did exactly what humans do. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped. You saw someone who others had given up on, and you refused to give up. You saw potential where others saw only limitations. Sarah looked out the viewport where the heart of the sky was visible in the distance, its lights twinkling among the storm clouds like stars. Zephyr, she said, can I tell you something about humanity? Please. We've learned something important over the centuries. The measure of a civilization isn't how it treats the strong, the successful, or the powerful. It's how it treats those who are weak, broken, or forgotten. And humans choose to treat them with compassion. We choose to treat them like family, Sarah corrected, because that's what they are. Family isn't about species or appearance or physical ability. Family is about who chooses to stand with you when everything seems hopeless. Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Your species is truly remarkable, Ambassador Chen. No more remarkable than yours, Sarah replied. You flew into combat to save your people despite your injuries, despite being rejected by your own society. You chose to trust aliens with your life and your species' future. That takes courage beyond anything I can imagine. Perhaps, Zephyr said. The remarkable thing is what happens when our species work together. Sarah smiled, looking at the reports on her desk that detailed the new collaborative technologies, the cultural exchange programs, and the joint exploration missions that were already being planned. I think you're right, she said, and I think this is just the beginning. 6 months later, the words Terra Station Accords would become synonymous with a new era of interspecies cooperation. The alliance between humans and dragons would inspire dozens of other species to reconsider their own treatment of disabled or marginalized populations. The tactical innovations developed during the Corsair War would become standard throughout the galaxy. But for Sarah Chen, sitting in her office and watching dragons and humans work together in the shipyards beyond her window, the most important achievement was much simpler. They had kept their promise to someone who needed help. And in a galaxy often dominated by power and self-interest, that kind of simple human decency had proven to be the most revolutionary force of all. Because that's what humans do. They see someone who needs help, and they help. They see someone others have given up on, and they refuse to give up. They see potential where others see only limitations, and sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough to change the galaxy.